You didn't give up, even though that's everything that happened to you, around you. You saw people just give up left and right. And maybe sometimes you felt like people gave up on you, but you don't, and you can't. So if you're watching this today, right now, it's because you don't know how to give up, because you will never want to. Sometimes it feels like giving up is like the worst thing that you can do in life. But sometimes trying and trying and trying and trying can lead to insanity. And a good reframe that helps me is that it's not necessarily giving up on myself. I may be giving up on the goals of other people that they set on me. I may be giving up on the expectations that were put on me, that I was subjected to. But I've never given up on myself, and neither have you. And it's a wonderful thing, because I hear all the time, I wasn't shown this, I wasn't shown love, I wasn't shown consistency, I wasn't this. But you have been a constant, regardless of what's unstable, whether it's moving when you were a little kid, or whether it was transitioning from major to major, or if you didn't pursue school, it was that. It's not following a traditional path. So sometimes, yeah, we may give up on things that just don't make sense anymore. And we may give up on the hope that we had for systemic institutions to support us. And I want to let you know that I too have been tired of hearing so many of these affirmation videos and all the lovely, lovely, beautiful messages, but sometimes there's some dissonance that happens there. And it's when we know, like, I know I'm going to be posting this during a time where we're going through a crisis left and right, whether it's internal or it's external, or because it's external and we've internalized it. Sometimes systems give up on people, governments give up on people, but people don't give up on each other. And you're one of those people that just can't give up. The reframe I was mentioning earlier was about surrendering versus giving up. I, for the longest time, didn't think I could say the words "I surrender" because it felt like I was subjecting myself to something. But in truth, the surrender was needed. And that was what I was resisting for the longest time, because I felt like if I surrendered, I gave up. And when you're surrounded by people who give up, and you're surrounded by institutions that give up on people, giving up is the worst thing. And sometimes when I think of that too, where it's like, oh, I'm going to give up on a certain thing, habit, whatever it is, it feels like I'm giving up a part of myself, or I'm giving up some sense of control. And when I've experienced those things, the control is exactly what was causing that resistance. I watched The Odyssey last night, and if you watched it too, affirmations. But I remember reading it and just being so enamored by the storytelling, the environments, and the environments that enabled storytelling. But when I was watching the movie, I was much more introspective on Odysseus' character. And what I really was like resonating so deeply with was this journey, the Odyssey. It wasn't even just about the battle or the war. It was about the battle that happened internally after, Odysseus won the war. And he was stuck on an island for over 7 years, eating blue lotus that would make him forget, but he would feel and remember feeling. There was this shame, and there was this regret, and there was this unnamed grief that he was going through. And I thought of that, and sometimes I think of like my timelines or my cycles or loops that I kind of go through, and it feels like that's where I've been. And when I remember, because I have such a vivid memory of my childhood, so many things that I remember. I had a conversation with my mirror last night, and I've admitted to myself that I haven't been fully honest with myself. And in those moments, it kind of leads to this feeling of betrayal where I like, why would I not be honest with myself? Like, it's just me. Why would I judge myself? Like, it's just me. But then it was like, I finally have been like instilling so much of what I've been learning. And if you're like me going through this journey of healing and knowing and realizing what the fuck that actually means and what that looks like, a part of the struggle with that was intellectualizing everything, being so knowledgeable about something, but then acting completely opposite of that. You know, if it's like, okay, well, wow, I just learned what trauma is and how it affects my life. And then it's like, well, why am I still doing the things that trauma taught me to do? Well, it's because you're unlearning so much of that behavior. You're changing so much of who you are, who you've been, and there was so much momentum built in that direction that once you start going away from it, it's gonna feel like everything is against you. What I loved in that scene of Odysseus returning back home, what Calypso had told him basically to surrender to the winds, surrender to the ocean. A lot of his journey was so much of this self-imposed, self-inflicted feelings of, I'm trying to think, besides shame, it was him carrying the tolls and the consequences of others as well. You know, like he was leading an army, and because the army did what they did and everything, he also internalized all of those actions and all of those feelings, which in turn made his coming to terms with his environment a lot harder. And, you know, when I think of that too, it's like they talked about, you know, there was like this 10-year long wait time before they reached Troy. And they were filled with so much like just savagery because of all that waiting and the angst, the anxiety, and vengeance and blood curdling violence that they wanted to enact. When I remember hearing all of those words, it reminds me of my first 10 years of living. Had so much unprocessed things that I witnessed and that I embodied, and that it was so difficult not to continually talk about those things because I was just trying to understand them. And when I would have nightmares or like borderline PTSD nightmares, I would confuse it for my mind betraying me. I had this short film called I Can't Wake Up, where it was just all these cycles and repetition and feelings that I couldn't escape my own mind, and that my own mind was hurting me. Why would it do that? Why would I hurt me? And with that short film, those loops and being stuck in that mindset of feeling like my own mind was betraying me, it caused so much mistrust within myself, and it caused so much of this like disconnect between my mind and my own body. So when I think of those 10 years when I was a younger kid and just going through life, I remember feeling the moment where I became cognizant, conscious of myself and time. Everything else before that was genuinely like just watching life play out. I was participating in it, but I was also so like hidden away from it too. And there was that one pinpoint that one point of that damage that was happening within my environment that made me feel like being in this dream state, dissociative, for over 5 to 10 years. It was hard to get out of that and to start to feel myself and to start to feel that I had so much more autonomy. At that time, when I was in that kind of dissonant state, it was so easy to be swept away by all of the other emotions that were being projected in my family. And then moving on into like teenage years, I had so much of the confusion led to so much unknown guilt and shame that I would embody from others. I don't know. Long story short, there's a new story that's being told. There's a new story, there's a new narrative, and we've turned the page into something else. And this part of our next chapter is really going to be like finally living without so much shame and fear in our lives. Oh my gosh, shame dictated so much of how I thought and felt. And guilt was something that I just carried so heavily. But it was always really secondhand guilt of, I knew that that was wrong, but then it felt like I was the only one that knew that that was wrong. And I grew up in a household where speaking up wasn't allowed, but my voice was what saved my mom, literally, as a fucking toddler. And so I started to distrust my own voice. When I have like the thoughts in my brain and I'm like thinking to myself, I'm in there. But it hadn't been my voice in so long. It was either my mom's voice or my coworkers' voices, because it felt like I needed to be looked over, not even looked like as a caregiving way, but like it just felt like I always had something looming over me. That's the word, looming, not looking, but looming over me. And in some weird way, that was like a sense of keeping myself in check. But then it's like the hypocrisy that I also went through and witnessed. And in my upbringing, there was so much contradiction. There was so much of like, do this, but don't do that. And then we would do that. And then, like, it was just so much of this whole, like, you'll say something, but then you'll see something else. And I've been tired of it. And so with this next chapter, I think that's exactly what we're moving away from. Is literally, we're thinking of life in a way where it's like we thought we had unskippable ads everywhere and anywhere, but we don't. You actually don't have to go through that loop or that cycle to get to where you want to be. You actually don't have to sit through that uncomfortably suffering feeling of, dang, I know I need to do this now and it's going to be so hard. No, it's literally like, okay, I guess I'll do that because I know it's going to be easier. Literally today, I was walking home from work. I know what I want to do. I want to go out to my hammock. I want to do a little sparky spark. But I knew what was going to help me feel much better was to get on this yoga mat, stretch, and breathe, and settle down, and calm down. And after doing a little bit of that, I was staring at my legs up on the wall, and this was the 5th time that I heard in my mind, do like Jadina. And I am. So when I, a couple years back, I had started a podcast, and it's called Making My Mark. It's still in the works, still trying to figure out how I want to implement it into my life and be more structured with it. But that first chapter of the podcast, and it's no longer up there because, I was kind of like, oh, that was my first attempt at doing it. I was just getting comfortable hearing my voice online. But it was very much just voice journaling and getting comfortable with hearing my own voice and processing out loud and allowing a space and room to do that. Ooh, that's so fun. Just remembering that, like, that made such a difference into how I was starting to process things. But even going into therapy, like, talk therapy wasn't the best thing for me. I started to then, outside of that experience, started to do a lot more like somatic healing, the tapping methods, the deep yoga nidra and breath work, and all of the really intuitive and physical elements of relaxation and embodying what that means through breath work, through the slow movements. And I lost my train of thought, but I'm excited. I'm excited for life, and I haven't been excited for life in a long, long time. Because I remember feeling excited, and there was something that would always just kill it. And then going back to like the nightmares that I used to experience a lot of, not realizing that I was just processing things, but it made me fear going to sleep. It made me be so afraid of my own mind that I wouldn't want to sit still or in silence. I'd be doom scrolling, knowing dang well all this is just bullshit. But I wanted something active. I wanted something on. And so when I was having that heart-to-heart with myself in the mirror, I admitted I have not been completely honest with myself. And sometimes I avoid doing the right thing. And when that was coming into place in that conversation, the right thing at the time was go the fuck to bed. Go the fuck to sleep. What the fuck are you doing? Just standing out here looking like a dummy in the mirror. But it was a needed conversation, so I had to have it. But at the same time, it felt like stalling. Even having that heart-to-heart felt like stalling. And it's like, if you already know that you need to go to bed, and we're kind of like doing these like mind games and like being like, no, this is a really good conversation, I need to have this. It was just so good to feel like I can just admit things with myself. Like when I was growing up, I had this eating and not eating and just body dysmorphia left and right, like up and down, inside and out. It was very difficult to see myself. And when I would gaze into the mirror for a really long time, I started to be really uncomfortable with looking in the mirror. And then my face would morph, or like my eyes would like, what's the word, like blur out or whatever the fuck it was. It was such like a psychological thing. But I started to question that. I was like, where do you want to go? And where do you want to be? And in thinking of that and allowing myself to admit that, when I would look in the mirror when I was younger, I'd only focus on the things I didn't like. When I was in that like really horrid environment growing up, looking away was the only way to feel like the bad things weren't necessarily happening. So then I started to learn to look away from the bad, but then inevitably I would also look away from the good. And I would just look away altogether. So, yeah. In this chapter, in this moment in life, we're really learning to apply so much of the wisdom and the knowledge that we've been taking in. Learning to fully, unconditionally accept, love, not tolerate, but love and accept fully every piece of yourself. everything that the light shows, and everything that the shadows hide. It's time. I have heard of my friends use the word love interchangeably with dating and romance and men and whatever. But really, think about love as there's a baseline. Love is a baseline. Love is something you can always turn to, return to, come back to, and it will always be there to support and hold you. But when we confuse love for addiction, when we confuse love for fascination and obsession, and we confuse love for fucking hookup culture, we're gonna want to never experience love ever again. But you never have. I had to sit with myself and admit, like, I haven't been heartbroken. The biggest heartbreak I've had was just disappointment with my elders in my family and my community. But genuinely, with like romance and that kind of love, I have not felt genuine heartbreak. I'm very happy to say that. But it was all the sad times and all the moments that it crashed out over something not working out. It was just because I was upset that my projected reality wasn't going to work out. It was more me being and throwing a tantrum over the fact that I was willing to love on someone who wasn't meant for me. And because I was willing to do that and they weren't willing to do that, it felt like this sense of I'm not enough, all this and that. And yeah, going through those kinds of things, and especially not knowing the true definition of love, it's gonna be fucking hard. But I just want you to know, love sometimes is doing the flossing. Love is the maintenance. It's putting in the work, and it's also learning to hear your voice amidst all of the noise that exists outside of us, amidst all of the projections that have been placed on us. And it's breathing deep into your stomach, holding that, and letting it go. It's like a breath. One of the biggest lessons, and Jadina has also helped me a lot, instill this into my journey, has been not choke holding love out of the fear that it'll go away, that it'll never come back, that you'll never be able to experience it like that ever again. It truly is like a breath. Just imagine, like you're, oh, am I ever gonna breathe again? I'm just gonna hold on to this breath for the rest of my life because I don't think I'm ever gonna breathe again. Oh my gosh, me talking right now is just letting the breath go. And then you fucking pass out. Letting go, just like that. And guess what? It comes back. Thank you so much for being here. Right now, I'm watching Search Party. I just watched The Odyssey. I talked about it in this little episode. I just got put on a couple songs. Flowers by Ruthie and Coffee, Koffee, by Coffee. And yeah. My weekend's gonna be really good, so I hope yours is too. And if you're watching this within the week, even better. You're doing it right now. Right now. And this is the time that it needs to be done. There's no more unhealing when you start to heal. There's pauses, there's breaks in between, of course, but there's no going back. And the end goal will always be whatever it is you place there. So what I think of, just going back a little bit to the Odyssey and the journey that is to love yourself and to heal generational trauma, it is really about how long you want it to be. I thought of this like the conditional route will be the longer route because you're going to be holding yourself and holding yourself in a like, what am I trying to say? When the route is conditional and you have all of these, if I do this, then, if I am this by that time, then, it causes so much pressure. And for some, that's fine, that's great. But if you're watching this today and you're like me, like, no, I hate feeling pressured. I hate being forced to do things. If I'm gonna go wash the dishes, don't fucking tell me to do the thing that I'm already about to do. Just let me do it. I'll do it my way. I'll do it on my time. This is my fucking life. This is my journey. I'm here now. This is your world too. Thank you for being here.